Hello and welcome to the commentary box. This is our last podcast before we will be seeing some changes, and of course our last podcast till our 1 year birthday as such. So let's make this one a memorable one. Of course, the transfer window has opened. We're getting to the tail end of the festive fixtures, so there's a lot to talk about, and of course you're joined by me, Sam Turner, and Jake Griffiths. How are you, Jake?
I'm good, thank you. Not feeling too bad yet again. Another cold. I feel like the Jack Wilshere of illness. Like I've always got a little cold or a cough, or just don't feel quite well. But I'll soldier on. I'll take the wages like he does.
Yeah. Well, you're the Jack Wilshere of the podcast. I mean, you've got the potential. You've got the performances. You're just ill sometimes.
Yeah.
Anyways, of course, there was a big game last night between Manchester City and Liverpool, the kind of the title challengers, and of course, Manchester City managed to beat Liverpool 2-1 and closed the gap at the top of the table to 4 points, with Liverpool just still holding on at the moment. But it's a massive result for Manchester City, and it kind of reopens the title challenge, does it? Would you say, Jake? Or do you think it's just prolonging the inevitable?
I feel like it's interesting in terms of it's a really interesting title race at the moment, and I think I still don't even really rule Tottenham out yet. I know we talked a little bit last time about, are Tottenham really in it, and who do we think is going to win the league, etc. And, I did say last time I've still got the backing of City, and I think last night just sort of proved it. I think it showed a lot of character and spirit. I'm watching the interview with Company after the game, and he was saying he just plainly said, I don't care about the result. I was just buzzing with the performance. Like, he just thought that City played so well. They showed a lot of character and desire going into that game, knowing that it was almost a must-win game. Because if Liverpool win that game and City have dropped another 3 points, it'll be an incredibly hard comeback for them to put some reasonable amount of pressure back on to Liverpool. And I think the game was a very good game of football, especially in terms of reports. Like, you could see that obviously when City went up, it boosted City, but Liverpool still kept on going. I know there was a little bit of controversy about there was a company tackle on Salah. I haven't really seen it back, but I know Klopp was definitely saying that he thought he was surprised how Company was not sent off for that. But he did give a lot of praise to Company beforehand, saying sort of how much he admires him and sort of his attitude in terms of football and things like that. So I think for Liverpool to score and get a goal back, they showed a lot of resilience. They kept on going. It was a very well worked goal, actually, a very nice team goal. I think it was a long ball from Trent back to the back post, with Robertson headed it back across for Firmino to get it into the back of the net. So I think in terms of the title race now, it's definitely not a little too late. Like, there's plenty of time left, and I do think City will go on to win it. But it's going to be really, really interesting, because it's made it quite close up there. Like I said, Tottenham aren't too far behind either. Now we're seeing a bit of inconsistency from the top two. This is the sort of opportunity that Tottenham may want to take to try and get ahead of this. I know they got that defeat to Wolves not too long ago, and that will probably knock them back a peg or two. But I feel like Liverpool going forward now, they've got to really they've got to sort of be as consistent as they were, because obviously they're not going to play City. Is that the second time they play City, Sam? Do you know?
I'm not sure, actually. I'll have a look.
I can't even remember myself. If you look for that while I carry on for a bit, and finish off what I was going to say. So with sort of, obviously now Liverpool have got to work hard and be very consistent. Obviously, they've done this already, but it almost becomes a little bit harder in a way, because now they've been defeated for the first time in the league. It's sort of, although they probably weren't going to go the whole season undefeated, it sort of gotten rid of the possibility that they could have. So teams are thinking, okay, they're not undefeatable. For example, Leicester going into that game after City lost to Crystal Palace, they're going to be thinking, you know what, we're under a lot of pressure here. But, City, they aren't as good as we think. They lost a game. They lost to Palace. We can go into this, trying to go for the victory. And they did, and they came out on top. So I feel like this could knock Liverpool, and they're going to need a victory straight away to bounce back. And I think City are going to have an advantage at this point, because they're going to be just trying to continue that great victory onto other games. So it's going to be interesting to see how Liverpool do. It's crucial that Liverpool win their next 2-3 games. City, obviously it's important they do as well, but there's less pressure on that, because Liverpool's are the one at the top now. They're the one who's sort of setting the tone and setting the rhythm, how many victories, etc. So it'd be interesting to see how it pans out. Are you still going with Liverpool to win the league, Sam? Is that still your bet?
I'd still say Liverpool are going to win the league. I know this is a bit like deja vu from the last podcast, but this mismatch has almost just changed things all up again. I mean, I think if Liverpool win their next match, I don't know who it's against, but if they do, I think they'll be back on track again. They've got Brighton in the Premier League next up, and then Wolves before that in the FA Cup. But yeah, if they win against Brighton, I think things will be back on track for them. But I think the worst thing they can do now is slip up again, because then that really just changes the dynamics of the whole league table again. But I think if Liverpool win the next match, I can see them going on to win the league, because it's just that kind of mindset. If you lose 2 in a row, it's like, oh, are we really not good enough? But if you get straight back up and win again, it's like, oh, okay, that was just a blip. And back to saying about have they played Manchester City before? They did, and that was of course at home, and they drew 0-0. So they don't have to play Manchester City again. So as long as they just win all their games, they're in the driving position still. They're still obviously 4 points clear, which if you think about the top of the table, is actually quite a lot, because there's not many chances for slip-ups in the top of the table, so it's a good cushion to have still. As for Tottenham, I think Tottenham have maybe found themselves back into kind of the title challenge. It's going to be hard for them. They just got to win all their games and obviously try and beat them, Liverpool and Manchester City, when they play them. But yeah, it's changed the dynamics of the title race a bit. I think everyone before this match was thinking, oh, Liverpool have had it. It's Liverpool's to throw away. And I think after this game, they have slightly lost. People have lost their kind of confidence in Liverpool and maybe think, actually, it's not a done deal. Man City can obviously come back. And as you said, you think Man City will win the title. And I can see where you're coming from, because they've been there and done that. They know what to do. So the title race is been thrown completely open again, and it looked like a good match last night. Shame I didn't watch it, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
It's certainly gonna be very interesting, and I feel this season is a little bit different from other seasons, because I feel like we've got we've got two big sides, both incredible quality. If one of them wasn't in the league, the other would certainly win that league. And very, very comfortably, I feel. And, Tottenham is still sort of just skinning on the teeth. They're just trying to keep in it still, putting everything they've got in it. It's going to be interesting to see how they go. I have a little interesting point. I know it's quite a random off point, Sam, but just a quick one. Do you think the Tottenham will make any signings? Well, to be fair, out of all the top 3, can you see any signings in those top 3? And can you see, if they do, are they going to be that influential on the team that you could see, that could be the reason why they lost the league, or the reason why, they came top of the league at the end of the league season? Sorry, can you see, I don't know who they would bring in, but let's say, I don't know, Tottenham bring in another striker and they change the way they play a little bit. They play two up front, for example, Kane as well. He adds more goals and they start to win more games and they go through. Or, Liverpool bring in another big name centre back, someone like the likes of Hummels or someone to sort of replace Lovren, and it strengthens the defence that much that they go on to concede such little goals and they keep on their scoring tally, they win the league.
Yeah, I can't see any of them making any big signings. I mean, Tottenham may be the only one, but I've just looked online to see if there's any rumours about any players signing, and it's all about contracts, people signing new contracts. So, because with the three sides, they're already good sides, and I feel like if any player comes in, it might disrupt them a tiny bit, if that makes any sense. I mean, Tottenham might be the only side that might need someone because they're in third position. They're a bit off the pace in terms of the top two. So if someone comes in, I reckon it could help. But with Manchester City, there's not a lot of players that would improve that side. And if you brought someone in, would you just upset the team mentality? And the same with Liverpool, even more so with that Liverpool side. They've been together for the last 2 or so years, and they've really kind of clicked. Would it bringing a new face in it just kind of change things up a bit, and would it mean that they might have worse team morale, or kind of it might cause a rift in the dressing room? I don't know. So I can't see Liverpool or Manchester City buying anyone. But as for Tottenham, I think they do need to buy someone, and I can't think of any exact players, but I think they could do with maybe another central midfielder, because Eriksen looks like he might be leaving. Obviously, Dembele's injured, I think. Wanyama's not been playing that much. So I think the only player they could kind of bring in is a midfielder that can just really command the midfield a bit more, if that makes any sense. Yeah,
I mean, in terms of sort of transfers as well, this player probably won't be going to Tottenham, as you'll find out in a sec why. But there's been quite a fair bit of talk, I'd say, around Aaron Ramsey this season, because obviously he runs out of his contract expires in the summer. And I think both him and the club have decided that they're not going to sign another contract. And people were rating, Ramsey quite highly in terms of who they think he might go to. They're talking about big teams, someone like Bayern or Juve. And personally, I don't think he's on that level. I feel like he's got potential to be on that level, but not going to be sort of someone who's going to walk into that side easily and play week in, week out.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I know it's another little random curve, but in terms of Aaron Ramsey, where can you see him going in the summer? Do you think, is he going to stay in England? Like, I don't know. Is he going to drop down a level, or is he going to sort of join a club that could be similar in rating to Arsenal, do you think?
I think the most likely place he'll go is Italy. Obviously, Juventus have made a habit of kind of waiting for players to come out of contract and kind of snapping them up. You've seen Khedira from Real Madrid came on a free basically because his contract ran out to Juventus. You see obviously Emre Can coming from Liverpool on basically a free transfer because he ran out of contract. So I think in terms of likelihood of who's going to buy him, I reckon it'd be Juventus. And I think going to another country for Ramsey, he's seen another one of his countrymen, Gareth Bale, go to another country and be successful. So I reckon he will go abroad in terms of going to Italy, maybe Inter, maybe Juventus. And I think he can do really well there because over here he's always been an Arsenal. Obviously, he's always been kind of an Arsenal player in the Premier League, so to say. But we haven't kind of respected him as much as we should really, because he's got great talent, but he's never been one of the stars in the UK and in the Premier League. So maybe him leaving might give him a chance to show the world that he's actually really, really good. And as you said, he might not get the game time he wants, but if he does, and if during that game time he shows what he's about, it could really just boost his kind of credentials again, because I think he's still pretty young in the overall scheme of things, like 26, 27 or something. So he's got a lot to kind of still prove of himself. So I can see him going to Italy, really, to be honest. And I think it'd be good for him to go. And of course, wages-wise, the reason that he's not really signing a contract at Arsenal is because he's playing better and more often than Ozil at the moment, and Ozil's obviously on a much better contract with him. So I think he just needs to he wants a bit more money as well, and he feels like he's not being respected by Arsenal, I guess. So definitely, I can see him leave the door, and I think he'll be going to Italy.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good move for his career. Like you said, I don't think he'd exactly walk into that side, but if he starts building up, progress in training, relations with the manager and players, I could see him playing games here and there, and potentially in a year or two, he could be a regular starter for that team. I think it'd be probably a good idea to we can swift and move on to sort of transfer talks at the moment. It seems like that's where the conversation is heading at the moment anyway. So sort of move on a little bit. Probably the biggest one that's happened at the moment, you mentioned it earlier, Sam, before we went on, was the Jermain Defoe move to Rangers. I think in terms of him partnering up with Stevie G, I think that'd be quite an interesting move. I personally think it would work well. I feel like also this now rules out Tom Eaves moving to Rangers, because there was actually a little bit of link between him and Rangers, and actually like a fair bit, because as a League One fan, when you hear your best players going to Rangers, you think, nah, because why would Rangers want a League One player? But then when I looked at it online, there was actually quite a lot of things linking them together. And I was just like, wow, please don't happen. But no, so he's gone for his second choice, I think, with strikers, and he's gone for Jermain Defoe. Do you think, Sam, because it's quite interesting actually, because obviously you've got two players who basically have played it in the same England team for a fair bit. They probably know each other like fairly well. Now, one being a manager and one being the striker. Do you think, because I can't really think of where that's happened before, where the two players have played together and then one's gone to be the manager at the time when the other's a player. Can you see that working well? Because I find this will be a thing that he'll either work well and he'll score a lot, or it just won't really work at all and nothing will happen.
Well, in terms of the first question about has something like this happened before, I think it has. I mean, sorry to use Swansea as an example again, but when Gary Monk took over, he went from basically straight from being a player in the squad. I mean, admittedly, I think he only played one cup game the season that he took charge, but he went from being a key the captain, club captain, to being the manager. And obviously he was coaching players such as Ashley Williams, who'd been playing for most of his career, Leon Britton, Angel Rangel. And I think there is that kind of respect there between them, between the players and the managers, because obviously they've played together, they've been friends, so there's a want to try and succeed for the manager, if that makes any sense. So I can see that kind of dynamic working well, to be honest. And plus they're not two players that have played in the same club team together before, so it makes it a bit easier, because obviously they both respect each other, but they might not be on that kind of really good friends, so they might not be biased or anything. So I can see it working that well on that front. Obviously, it's a good transfer for you, because Tom Eaves is now hopefully staying. Right. There's still links. Isn't there still links with him to going to Hibernian though? Isn't there? Or
yeah, a couple of links here and there. I think someone, because basically our chairman I just briefly talked about it. Chairman did like an open talk thing recently, and people went and asked, and they asked about Holy and Eaves, who both refused to sign contracts, and Paul Scally said none of them will be sold in January, unless an incredible offer comes in. And that's the plan. So I think the plan is keep them to the end of the season, because I think definitely without them we'd probably be relegated. So keep them to the end of the season, see what we can do from there, see what we finish up, offer them another contract maybe at the end of the season, depending on how well they do, see if they want to stay. I know it's very unlikely to happen, but so we're okay for now.
Okay for now. But yeah, back onto the kind of Defoe. I think he'll do well at Rangers. I know he's 36 now, and this 18-month loan will basically take him up to he's like 38. But he scored goals wherever he's gone throughout his career. He scored goals, obviously, Tottenham, Bournemouth, Portsmouth, Toronto, England. So I think he'll do well in at Rangers. And I think with Rangers, they've obviously got like Kyle Lafferty already up front playing for them. And people kind of see the Scottish Premier League as kind of a lower league, of course, than the Premier League. But I think Defoe will be a star in that league, in the Scottish League, and not because he's an aging player and he's probably lost a bit of potential, but he's like, that's perfect level for him, because it's not quite Premier League, but it's not quite Championship. It's like in between, and I think he'll do really well at Rangers, especially with Carl Lafferty and Defoe up front. I can see that working really well, with Defoe having the bit of the pace and the poaching kind of attitude, and Carl Lafferty being a bit more of the kind of the target man situation. So I can see Defoe doing really well at Rangers, and I think Rangers are really kind of probably very lucky to have him there. So it'd be interesting to see how he does, really.
Yeah, I agree. I do think he will do well, because, like you said, it's not quite at top Premier League football, but then it's almost not quite all that Championship football as well. It's a little bit in between, and I think at the moment that is the sort of level where he will peak and do quite well. I think in terms of just adding a bit of is an experienced player to a team that obviously have got a manager who's not an experienced manager will just help a little bit. I feel like if you've got a brand new manager who's never managed before at all, you sort of want to have a couple of experienced heads within the group just to sort of help him every now and again, because I feel like Defoe and Gerrard aren't going to have like a player-manager relationship. I feel like it's just going to be more of almost like a mates, but you're the boss of them in a way. Like they're going to be like, he's going to be mates with the boss. He's not going to Defoe's not going to do anything to anger him or talk about him poorly behind his back, and I feel like in a young players bringing through, having the likes of Defoe and Gerrard there, who are both players who made it, is going to be great experience for them. So I think it's a great move being alone. I think it's a good move for the club, and another good signing for Gerrard.
Yeah, exactly. And plus they're fighting for the title up in Scotland with Kilmarnock and Celtic, so it'd be potential for a trophy for Defoe as well. Other transfer news, moving on from Defoe, of course, what's his name? Christian Pulisic moved to Chelsea and has been loaned straight back out to Borussia Dortmund. I just want to get your reaction on how good of a player Christian Pulisic is, and anything else about kind of how he's been loaned back to Dortmund this season.
Yeah, I feel like with the first of all, the loan back to Dortmund, I feel like that's definitely a Dortmund-led thing. I don't think Chelsea would really want to bring in a player and not play him straight away, because obviously that player you want, so that's obviously part of the deal. So Dortmund getting a little bit there, 60 million as well. I think quite overpriced. Like I've seen him play a little bit for Dortmund. I like to watch a little bit of German football every now and again when I can, and like he's a good player. He's a central midfielder, and he's fairly all round. Like he isn't exactly neglected defending at all. Like he's not just all up front, all striking, assists, things like that. He's quite balanced. So he's a good player to have in the squad. I feel like it's a player that Chelsea would like right now. Whether I think he's exactly at the level that Chelsea want, I don't know. It could be sort of one of those younger signings for the future. A couple of years he's going to be playing at a very high level, which is what Chelsea want. But I think for 60 million right now, it's quite a bit of money for him.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I think it's hard, because football transfers, they fluctuate so much recently, and we see these obscene amounts of money for these players, and quite often it's just quite normal now. So I just think he's a little bit overpriced, but I think most players who sign for a club, I would still say is overpriced, because I've still got that mindset of, how much players are worth is a bit different to how they are now. Like the Neymar deal, ridiculous, and that's the money, things like that. In terms of the loan back again, I think it's we talked about this a little bit. We could say this could be quite a big topic to talk about potentially. With loan signings, I read online that it's Chelsea's 41st, loanee out at a club, and I was just thinking, I was just saying to Sam earlier, I was like, out of all those players, how many of those are actually going to come back and be like consistent, good players for that club, or they're going to sell them on for a decent amount of money? And I could say like only 3 or 4. We mentioned a couple of names, the likes of sort of Moses, Loftus-Cheek, Christiansen, and there aren't that many. Like I know, like for example, like Ake, I think he got loaned to Bournemouth at first, or Watford, someone like that. Did well, and then Bournemouth came in for him and got him permanently signed. So I don't know. I just feel like having so many loans, the players aren't really going to feel that connected to the club, because if there's 41 of you out on loan, who's going to be managing that? It's probably just going to be 1, maybe 2 coaches, possibly 3. Who would be sort of checking out though, because when players go out loan, I didn't even realise this till the other day, but there's quite a lot of sort of like checking up on them, keeping in contact. Are they happy? Is this going well? Is that going well? Because quite often players will go out on loan and they just won't really enjoy it so much, and it's just about getting them game time, getting them experience. So I feel like with having so many loans, it's a bit ridiculous, because imagine you're youngster, like you're 17, 18, you've been loaned out to some League 2 side and you're playing every now and again, and Chelsea is your parent club. Are you ever realistically going to get into that Chelsea side? Probably not. How is that going to affect your mentality? Probably not going to be the best thing in the world, but it seems to work all right for Chelsea. Like, to be fair, if it works so well for Chelsea, I don't know why other clubs don't do it, but obviously it's a lot of wages you got to spend on players if they're not playing regularly in the squad, and obviously if they're being loaned out, you don't pay them. The other club will, so it would be an advantage to do that. But I don't know. What do you think of it, Sam? I think it's some people will feel like, oh, it's not that big of like, it doesn't really matter. Like, it is just loan deals. It doesn't matter. But I feel like that there could be a lot more to it. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, just quickly before I go into the loans bit, I just want to say that I just realised that Christian Pulisic is 20 years old and was born in 1998. That's only a year older than us. And he's gone for £60-odd million, which is crazy when you think about it. I think, as you're right, I think they have overspent on him slightly, but that just could be because of the inflated kind of market we live in now. Because a few years ago, I reckon he would have only been a £20-30 million player. And now it's just gone crazy, really. But yeah,
is he American? I think.
Yeah, he is American. So for American football, soccer, it's great news because he becomes the most expensive American player of all time. So it's good news on that front. But as you said with the loan thing, it's almost like Chelsea are a factory for kind of young players. They like come in for, say, or they're basically like trading players. They come in for like $1 million and then they leave for like $6 million after having 3 loan spells. One at probably Vitesse Arnhem because that's their favourite club to go to, and then they leave Chelsea without playing a game. But Chelsea makes some profit, which is it's a weird kind of state to be in for Chelsea. I mean, obviously we do see some players be successful there, but it's odd. Like Tammy Abraham, really good talent, playing really well at Aston Villa at the moment. Probably won't ever get into the Chelsea squad because he's just on the cusp, or they just don't want to kind of take the risk and play him. It's weird because they rather basically buy players to fit in their squad than to use players they already have, if that makes any sense. And it kind of changed under Conte with like Moses coming in and kind of playing him in a position where you would normally see Chelsea kind of bring in a player to do it rather than training someone like Moses. But they trained him, and that's the only example I can think about kind of Chelsea not just going out and buying a player just for the sake of it. As for Pulisic going to Chelsea, in my head I just see this as kind of a Salah incident where, of course, if you remember, Salah and even De Bruyne both come over from reasonably big clubs and after having reasonably big seasons to Chelsea, don't end up playing, but then after a few years, leave the club, do really well somewhere else, and become superstars. So I have a feeling that this might turn out the same way. Obviously, for Christian Pulisic, I hope it doesn't. But with Pedro not leaving, but not doing so well, Morata not doing so well, I think next season he could really kind of have an impact, and hopefully for his sake he does.
Yeah, I feel like I do quite like the line of saying like Chelsea like a factory. I think it's an interesting thing, but it is a bit like, clubs like to develop players these days, and they like to sort of make players better and increase how they do well over time, things like that. But then when it comes to actually, using those, like for example, let's look at like the club like something like Southampton or Bournemouth. They have a big emphasis in their youth team, and like Arsenal as well, to be honest. And they bring players through their youth, try and play them. They don't go buying these big names, just getting people in whenever they want. If they don't quite work, I'll load them off. Who cares? But Sam, could this also be just more of a financial gain more than anything? Maybe Chelsea are buying so many players, loading them out, because eventually one of them could be a superstar, and they could make so much more money overall. And is it more? Do you think it's more of is it a profit thing? Is it more of actually we're looking for talent in our team? If they don't work, we just load them out. We'll just keep doing that because it's financially stable for us to do that? Are they just going to keep on going until they find that next star? I don't know. I feel personally it's a bit of both. I feel like it's partly let's get profit on players when they sell on, but also it's partly on we want more talent in our squad. It'd be cheaper to buy them when they're young, like now.
I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I'm trying to think of an analogy, and it's quite a sciencey one, but how you get certain metals from ore, well, I kind of see it where they kind of buy a load of ore, or loads of players. That's like the ore. They kind of melt it all down and heat it. Some bits of the metal that comes out is not that great, but you can still kind of sell it on for a small amount of money. And then some of it is really rare metal, and you can either use it for yourself, or you can sell it on for a large amount of money. So I think that's what kind of Chelsea are doing.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Or like analogy of like they're panning for gold. They have loads of kind of rocks in the players, and they kind of pan it till they find the gold bit where they can either keep it for themselves or sell it, really. So I think they are kind of gambling with buying loads of players and loaning them out just to see if they can find that one gem that can kind of either play for them and do really well, or they can sell on for a profit.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they're probably doing. It's interesting to see like not many other clubs do this. I feel like because it sort of works for Chelsea, doesn't it? Really, that it's not like a negative impact. Like they would stop doing it if it didn't work for them.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see what other clubs don't do it. Maybe it's a lot of hassle, a lot of risk. You've got to maintain it, things like that. But it'd be interesting to see sort of where it goes with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's an interesting technique that Chelsea use. As you said, it's quite unique. But yeah, that kind of brings us to an end of our transfer kind of update, unless you have any other transfer kind of news you want to add in or talk about.
I think that's probably about it, because I think we're quite early on with the transfers.
Yeah, true. But yes, we'll continue doing transfers throughout January, really. And we might even have a transfer special near the end of the transfer window. Ooh. So yeah, we'll be keeping up to date with all the transfer news. But now we shall go on to our last topic for today's podcast, and that is Man United and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Of course, we talked about him and Manchester United when he first arrived after Mourinho was sacked. But now I think it's time for a quick update on how Ole is doing. And because, of course, the last time we talked about it, we were talking about what is successful for Manchester United. But I think another question we should have been asking is, how well does Ole have to do to kind of get the job in the future? And Jake, of course, Man United have won their first 4 games with Ole in charge. I know they're kind of the teams he's played include kind of Newcastle, Cardiff. Who else is it? It's Huddersfield and Bournemouth, but they've won them by 2 goal margins, all of them, and have not scored more than or less than 2 in all 4 games. And I'm just wondering if this continues, are Man United going to do really well? And off the back of these 4 results, do you think Solskjaer can get the job in the future?
Firstly, I would look at it and say, do I think Mourinho could have done the same thing? I would have thought, if I was a Man United fan, I was looking at Mourinho and I would have thought, you know what, in these 4 games, on paper they should be winnable, but we might slip up and get an embarrassing draw somewhere. But I think they probably win them. But like you said, they've all won them by 2 goal margin. They've scored a lot of goals, not conceded many really at all. I don't think Mourinho's side would have done that. I feel like, when they go to the likes of Bournemouth and Cardiff, these teams are quite sort of low down teams, and they're not quite. It's sort of a very, the home ground's quite small, and I don't know how to describe it, but I was just thought it would be a tight game. Like, I couldn't see United going to Bournemouth and going away with a 3-4-0 victory. Could I see Liverpool or City doing that? Yes, I could. But I feel like with United, it would have just been like a 2-1 win or something, and it would have been close down to the end. It might have been a scrappy goal, and they might have just got a header in or something. But it's showing a lot for them to win that game comfortably. Likewise with all the others. I feel like United could prove some people wrong this season, and they could actually do quite well. I remember saying when he first came in, I thought United were too far back and they wouldn't do that well, that they would get into the top 4. I'm going to stand by that. I still believe that won't happen. I feel like 5th or 6th would be the sort of where they would finish. I know they're around there now anyway, but I don't think they're gonna put a huge amount of pressure on for that. But it's difficult because it's like, well, yes, they've won those games, but then they are easy. But then you can only beat what's in front of you, and then the form that United are in, I'd say they've done very well to win all of those games in the manner that they have done after what they've just had from the previous manager. I think that's a fair sort of analogy of how well they've done so far. In terms of him getting in the job next season, I feel like it was made quite clear to him that he wasn't going to be here permanently, and I feel like he knows that as well. But again, like, I can see that changing. If United go unbeaten to the end of the season now, I think they will offer him a contract. Like, I don't think we're going to see nothing happen. I feel like something. It literally depends on how well they do this. It's obviously too early to tell. It's going to be. We're going to have to look at him, look at how it comes to the big games. So obviously, we've seen teams that aren't exactly of the highest caliber at the moment. So we're going to have to wait until we sort of see those teams that aren't quite at the aren't quite mid-table to low. Where you start playing the Tottenhams, the Arsenal, the Chelsea, things like that, to see how well they do. But I feel like Mourinho going and lifting a big weight off their shoulders. I feel like there's so much more relaxed now. The freedom to play is increased. I think it's just a very positive thing. I think it was in the end, looked like a very good decision to get rid of Mourinho. So far, it's working well. Obviously, it's very early to tell. We can't predict anything, but I feel like this form will continue, and I do think they're going to do a lot better than people expected.
Yeah, I would agree with you there, to be honest. It is too early to tell. I think the big match against Tottenham on the 13th of January will kind of be the real teller of how well this kind of Solskjaer period is going, because of course they are reasonably easy sides to beat, but I still think that Solskjaer has done better than Mourinho would have done. I think Solskjaer really wants to stay on after this season, and he's kind of made that quite clear. I mean, other people in the kind of frame are Zinedine Zidane and I think Laurent Blanc, the ex-France manager or PSG manager as well. So he's got some kind of challenge to try and prove himself. But I think if he, as you said, you don't think Man United will get 4th, but I think if they get 5th, I think he could see maybe him keeping his job as interim and making it more full time. But yeah, I think with Solskjaer, he's doing well so far, but the crunch game is going to be Tottenham, to be honest.
Yeah, do you think with United, sort of obviously we don't know what the talks have been between the manager and the chairman when he first came in, but what is going to make what would get him a new contract, Sam? What's going to be more? Would it be winning a trophy? Is it just going to be not necessarily even reaching the top four or fifth? But is it going to be seeing just an improvement in the squad? You know, players, the football is more exciting. The players are enjoying it more. They're doing better. The sort of people are more positive involved with United. Like, what do you think the aim is? Because obviously United hadn't, like, in terms of success-wise, they haven't been doing very well this season. But I feel like for United, it's not necessarily that important to be scraping 1-0 victories against sort of Tottenham and Arsenal and that. But it could be more just to see a development in the way they play, changing the way they play and sort of bringing more positive experience and more positive football, you know, free-flowing attacking football. That personally, that would be more appealing to me. I would not want to see us almost doing it the Mourinho way of, you know, scraping victories here and there. I'd actually rather see us show a bit of risk at the moment, you know, take a bit of risk, lose the odd game, but play more exciting. And I feel that's what he's doing right now in charge, and I feel like that's his approach. What do you think? What do you think, like, the priority is at the moment?
Well, I think with Champions League wise, I think that the board will be quite lenient because they have just got PSG in their draw for the last 16. So I can understand if he doesn't win against PSG. I think that would be quite understandable. I think Premier League wise, I think, as you said, I think this needs to be an improvement. It doesn't necessarily need to be top four, but it just needs to be an improvement. Obviously, any non-improvements, I think he obviously won't get it. And then with the FA Cup, I think if he just gets a good cup run and doesn't get humiliated in, say, in the early rounds, say against Reading, who they're playing, if they get to like the semi-finals, I think that'd be seen as a success. And then, as you said, I think an overall just positive change in attitude is kind of needed, and it's already been shown it has. But I think if he continues that, I think it will go towards him getting the job. But then I'm just thinking now, like, did Manchester United get him in charge on an interim basis just to change the kind of aura around the club, because they knew he's a past player, friendly attitude, we can just have him there temporarily just to change the attitude of the club, and then we'll get rid of him in the future just on it because he's only on an interim basis. So maybe I'm thinking that's what the board are thinking. Hopefully it's not, because I like Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and I think he can do well at Manchester United. But yeah, I think those kind of categories, as I said, with the FA Cup, Champions League and Premier League, I think those are the three important things to kind of consider. But you never know. I think he is definitely on the shortlist, I'd say.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like this is an opportunity for him to show what he's about, what he's made of, what he's learned in terms of his managerial career. And we could see some big things. He could be next manager for the next couple of years, get a deal at the end of the season. He's got good backing. He's got the likes of Mike Phelan and Michael Carrick sort of helping him with first team coaching. So, things are behind him. He's got a lot of money if he did want to buy and spend in the summer.
Exactly.
We're seeing instantly a development in Paul Pogba from literally the minute Mourinho left. The first game he comes back performing well, scoring a lot of goals. I think he definitely got Manchester United's Player of the Month. I don't know if it was the Premier League's Player of the Month. I can't quite remember, but he definitely got one award in December time anyway. So it'd be interesting to see where he comes. Just a little prediction again. Obviously, we've got a little bit more of information to sort of use and where we think. Where do you think United will finish this season, Sam?
I think that they'll finish fifth.
Fifth, and I can't remember what I said last time. I can't remember if I said fifth or sixth. I know I definitely said I don't think they can challenge for the top four, and therefore I probably said fifth. So I'm going to stick with my prediction of fifth place. I still think they will carry on improving for a bit. I can't see them doing incredibly well getting to the top four, only because of how far they are behind. Like, I can see them beating Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, all of those. I can't see them beating Liverpool and City at the moment, but I can see them beating the others and doing well. But I just can't see them. I feel like they're just, points-wise, they're quite far behind. Can't really see them getting back into it. But Who knows? We shall see.
Yes, indeed, we shall see. I think that kind of brings us to an end on that topic and to the podcast today. I hope you've enjoyed it. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter, which is at Box Commentary. You can follow us on Instagram, which is at Box Commentary, or you can even follow us on Snapchat, which is also at Box Commentary. Or you can even drop us an email on our email, which is thecommentary.box.contact@gmail.com. Do you have anything else to add, Jake?
I think from the last one until our big change, obviously we've got our 1 year coming up. Just sort of, I know we'll talk about it a bit more next time, but sort of thank you so far. I feel like we've done all right. We've done not too bad. We've got Roma to follow us on Twitter. We've gone on to many platforms over time. I think we've seen progression in the way that we conduct our podcasts. Obviously, we've got big news coming next podcast with the way where the sound will change a little bit about what you guys hear from us. And I feel like it's just a positive step. It's good going forward. I feel we've done well, Sam. I'd like to say thanks for you and your continued, being persistent with the podcast, keep on going, commitment to it. I think because obviously over time we've gone from sixth form where it's very easy to do it. We have book session with the radio room once a week. Obviously now we're both at university, different countries as well. So it's obviously more difficult to get these done, but we still keep doing it. And I do hope we continue for further. And I can see big things happening. I think we've definitely got potential with good ideas. There are some interesting things, by the way, guys, happening sort of outside of the podcast at the moment. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to promise anything that doesn't happen. But we're sort of looking down the interview route of people involved within football. I don't want to say too much because I don't want to promise anything that won't happen. But we're certainly hoping that we get something to do with that. But obviously, we'll keep you updated with that.
Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself. And of course, thank you, Jake. It's always a pleasure to do podcasts with you. And I'm glad we're doing this venture together. And of course, thank you to all the listeners. Couldn't do it without you. It's so enjoyable. I think we'll touch a bit more on kind of our thanks next time as well. But yeah, I think it's been great. And it's a great time to say thank you today as well. So that's about it, really. Maybe kind of happy there, Jake, a bit. So,
nice little happy ending.
Yeah, nice little happy ending. Thank you for listening. Of course, we've certainly enjoyed it today. Of course, check out our podcast next week because it's going to be a big one. It's going to be a good one, and it's going to be a different one. So please do check that out. But of course, in the meantime, enjoy your footballing weekend. I've been Sam Turner, and of course, Jake's been Jake. So goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me as well.
See ya.